listening to Driving Law, a podcast by Kyla about all things related to the rules of the road.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Driving Law. I'm Kyla at Acumen Law, and with me, my co-host, Paul Doroshenko.
Hello. Nice to see you, Kyla. I am sitting in the middle of the distillery because obviously that's a huge issue in my life right now.
Yeah, so both our lives.
So still's running behind me. I'm not running it. It's Juan's here running it. Everybody's on lunch break, and we've got we're just making some barreled spirits right now.
There you go. And I'm laying down the fort in the law office.
Yep. We had unexpected shipments this morning. So we had 4 more pallets of grain that were supposed to arrive this afternoon. We had 2 pallets of bottles we didn't expect to arrive until next week. And the store is continuing to pop up. So here we are.
Well,
And this week I went and visited liquor stores in Dawson Creek, Fort St. John, Taylor, Charlie Lake. It's out. Let me play them. So, Yep. Been busy.
Well,
and you've been busy.
Talking about expecting the unexpected, we expected legislation this week that came out on Thursday. It's hard to remember.
It was yesterday because I downloaded it at about 11 o'clock. They were already announcing it. It wasn't uploaded yet.
It's hard for me to remember the days of the week right now because I was in trial, and that just messes with my sense of time. Yeah. Anyway, the legislation we were expecting was bail reform legislation. So no surprise there, and no surprise about the changes that were made to the bail system.
Yeah, I mean, some of them make a lot of sense. And I posted on Blue Sky that the changes with respect to shoplifting made sense without going into what I was actually talking about. And I was just pilloried. I was attacked like crazy. Everybody is so defensive, protecting the shoplifters these days. People are shoplifting to eat. It wasn't what I was talking about.
Yeah, you were talking about organized crime shoplifting.
Yeah, and there's quite a bit of it. Like there's these overwhelming shoplifting things where they go into small stores. There's 2 people who go in and do distraction, and then other people go in and just rip the place off. And they travel around the country doing this and getting away with it. And they're released on bail because they have no criminal record, because they only catch 1 or 2 people, or they have only a minor criminal record, and then they disappear and they're gone to the next province.
Yep. There you go. Anyway,
and you want to talk about was?
Yeah, the thing I wanted to talk about in the legislation was the unexpected change to the criminal code in relation to driving prohibitions. And I know...
Was it unexpected? I thought you expected it.
I expected that this would probably end up changed, but I didn't expect that they would sneak it in a bail bill.
Oh, I knew criminal code changes. I figured that they would get it in there. I forgot about it. But so you better explain. This is your thing. This is one that you've been intimately involved in, so you should explain.
So when the amendments were made to the criminal code in December 2018, one of the things that was amended was the driving prohibition sections that allowed a court to impose a discretionary driving prohibition. So there's mandatory driving prohibitions, but there's also under 320.24 sub 4, discretionary driving prohibitions you get because a judge decides to give them to you, like dangerous driving. You can get a discretionary driving prohibition. What used to be in the criminal code was the ability to impose those prohibitions in cases of
Other offenses,
manslaughter, criminal negligence causing bodily harm or death, basically other offenses that you might have committed involving your car, but that weren't driving offenses on their own. And so this issue came up in a couple sentencing hearings where people were charged with criminal negligence causing death. The court imposed a driving prohibition, and they appealed on the basis that the driving prohibition was unlawfully imposed. In Saskatchewan, the Saskatchewan Court of Appeal was like, no, sorry, legislation amended, no driving prohibition. And the Ontario court was like, you can still do it. You can still do it because it would be absurd not to have a driving prohibition in these circumstances.
Lots of things are absurd in this world. Ontario Court of Appeal.
Yes. Anyway, the Supreme and I argued the same issue in BC and got the BC Court of Appeal to agree with the Saskatchewan approach.
Saskatchewan Court of Appeal,
Yep.
which
Yep.
surprised me with our Court of Appeal.
I was shocked too. I was going in there fully prepared to like fight the judges, and they were actually like asking me questions that told me they were agreeing with me. And I was like, this is a strange feeling when the Court of Appeal accepts what I'm saying.
Rare occasion where the Court of Appeal agrees.
Yeah. Um, and yeah, so we had and then it ended up my case ended up being cited a couple times in the Supreme Court of Canada's case, so that made me feel happy too. Anyway, so ever since then, there hasn't been the ability to impose a discretionary driving prohibition under the criminal code, although the BC government did amend the Motor Vehicle Act to allow a discretionary Motor Vehicle Act driving prohibition in those circumstances.
Yeah.
So now what we see in this legislation is adding in other offenses where you can get a discretionary driving prohibition. Including the criminal negligence sections and the murder and manslaughter sections.
Yep. So we knew that was coming, and that's not going to be taken out in committee.
No.
That's
People are going to be like, oh, sensible amendment.
How did we make this mistake before?
Yeah, exactly. So kind of disappointing. Because there was a brief golden moment, but people should also be paying attention to this because remember, until this legislation passes, if your client is charged with an offense, until the legislation passes, they still can't impose it. But if it's after it passes, they're charged.
But you're entitled to the lighter of the two punishments in the criminal code.
You're entitled to the lighter of the two punishments at the time you're charged. But if the offense occurred now, and then they get charged after this legislation passes, then they will only be entitled to that. So if you have a client that's like worried about a driving prohibition that's charged,
We just keep on. Sorry.
That's charged with criminal negligence, your best bet would be to plead them out before this legislation passes.
Yep.
Yeah. So there you go.
Get it done.
Yeah. Get it done because you don't want to delay anything. Yeah. Anyway, that's the big legislative change. Beyond that, there hasn't been like a ton of driving law related news. There's been a lot of like brouhaha again over the ICBC getting rid of the second driver's license exam thing. But then there's also been another like ICBC related driving law complaint that the opposition has had that is very odd to me that this is a concern to anybody, but also odd to me that they don't inherently understand why this exists.
The fractured opposition in BC right now are lacking in their capacity to properly assess anything because there's not one organizing mind, and I don't think anybody's listening to anybody aside from the leader except for leaks. So if you're not in BC, you may not, or if you're not paying attention, the Conservative Party has lost 5 members, and there's 2 separate parties have been created. There's an extremist party of 2, and then there's maybe forming another party of 3, and there's been calls for the opposition leader to step down. And I just think they're in a position right now where they cannot decide anything.
No.
Or understand much.
So somebody wrote a letter, an opinion post in the National Post about how ICBC has an Indigenous hotline and culturally sensitive driving tests. And they're like, why would this be the case? Why should Indigenous people get treated differently by ICBC? Just pisses me off.
Yeah.
Extension of this whole land claims caused the government land acknowledgements caused the court to rule against the government in the Cowichan case.
I'm on TikTok, as you know, and on these various apps, I see so much micro racism and overt racism. And I see it all, and it's disgusting. And every time I see it from a politician, I'm even that much more disgusted. But we're seeing it so often these days. We're seeing it so often. Um, it's just been normalized.
Yeah. So what ICBC has that this person is so concerned about is a reconciliation plan, as it should. All government, this was Truth and Reconciliation Commission report that like government entities should have a reconciliation plan. Like this is not odd. And so they have a phone line for Indigenous people. And it's staffed by a team of so-called supportive and knowledgeable ICBC employees who recognize the historical and contemporary barriers Indigenous people face when trying to obtain a driver's license. And this person who wrote this article, Amy Ham, I think, yeah, Amy Ham, doesn't in her article she questions why would this be the case? No Indigenous person must have ever complained about feeling unsafe on the phone with ICBC. And like that doesn't even.
How many times I've had Indigenous people who have approached things differently for the sake of the fact that I recognize that they have a different approach. And I'm cognizant of it. There's a lot of people who are not necessarily cognizant of it and ready to approach things differently.
Yep.
And there's one client I told you about before who phoned me, and he was the most rational, perfect, lovely person I'd ever dealt with. But I just had to approach him differently in order to get everything I needed for him. I did such a good job for him, but he has a completely different cultural background than I have. And,
Yeah.
and so I had, that's the whole idea of truth and reconciliation. We're going through this process. This is like,
Well, it's not just that. It's Indigenous people actually do, especially First Nations people living on reserves, actually do have a harder time getting driver's licenses for a variety of reasons. The remoteness of their locations, the often like difficult ability to like access insurance services and government offices because of the remote locations. And then you also have like people who are experiencing homelessness or have recently experienced homelessness who don't have identification documents. You need 2 pieces of government issued ID to get a driver's license. Most people don't remember having to go in with their mom and their birth certificate and their like SIN card or something, right? They don't remember that because they were 16. But for a lot of Indigenous people, they don't have these documents.
you don't have
Those cards
Yeah.
are often rejected by organizations because a lot of status cards look kind of hokey. Like they're these plastic laminated things with pictures of people often dating back to when they were babies, and they never get updated because it's not like your status expires. So they face challenges at ICBC licensing offices where people go, I can't accept this because this doesn't look like you.
Yeah.
You know.
No, there's so many good reasons for it, honestly. And like, there's so many good reasons for it that I see as a result of the fact of, my dealings with the Indigenous community. But there's a lot of things that obviously I don't know about. But the point is that, I only have to have that much information to see the need. Right.
Yeah.
So I just don't understand. I don't understand except it's racist. Just as they say, it's racist.
Just racism. And then her complaint is also that there's like a different road test service. The different road test service is that you can request a driving assessor, like a person who's going to test you, of a specific gender, and also that you can have an adapted route if you don't want to drive by triggering locations, like I don't know, former residential school sites.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. We know statistically that Indigenous women are at a much higher rate of being victims of sexual assault. Do you really think that it's a great idea to just say no choice over whether or not you get in a car with a white man who's statistically more likely to sexually assault you?
Yeah. Driving is empowering, and to throw up impediments for people who need to be empowered,
Yeah.
it just, and most people just have their parents there taking them down for their driving test, And for people who don't have that, it's a completely different organization. It's it's a completely different series of steps you have to take and things you have to contemplate, and without somebody there to help you with them. I just would like, like to see the Indigenous community, people in the Indigenous community more empowered, help them get their driver's licenses.
Yeah.
How tough is that? Anyway, you're right. We have this whole narrative, racist narrative right now that's playing out, because people want to exploit court decisions to try and help their political aspirations.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Much. And so, now anything that's aimed at reconciliation, even things that if you think about it for 45 seconds are obvious, is under attack because you might lose your house.
Yeah.
And for those who aren't watching this on video, my very skeptical face is out. Nobody's losing their home. No First Nation is coming to take your home. I promise you that. It's
Nope.
never going to happen.
The obligation is for the government to pay for the harms they've caused and the lost people have suffered.
Yeah, exactly.
Names.
But let's lighten it up. Let's lighten the mood because we have not been able to settle on one ridiculous driver of the week because there's just so many good ones.
And they're good. They're so good.
They're good. Yeah. Okay. So the first one, my favorite one, is the Lamborghini owner in BC who did not get his winter tires and obviously didn't listen to our podcast at the beginning of the month when winter tire rules came out.
Yep. Should be listening to the podcast.
Like,
would have known.
you have a $400,000 car and you can't just put the right tire. You can't afford the right tires. Like,
Once with a snowflake on the side.
yeah. Anyway, yeah, they were pulled over. A Lamborghini Huracan, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, in Porto Cove. And they were going 165 kilometers an hour in an 80 zone. So more than double the speed limit.
Slightly.
Without the correct tires for the conditions. Winter conditions, high mountain roads, not very safe. Yeah, so they ended up getting $713 worth of fines. Because in addition to the excessive speeding and not having winter tires, they also didn't have a front plate.
Which is pretty typical for the people driving around with Lamborghinis in Vancouver. They feel they're exempt because it
I'd have to put a mount on it and it would damage my precious car.
undermines the look.
Yeah, geez. Don't buy a Lamborghini then. I just if you want to pay that much money for a car and you don't want to put a front plate on it, buy a car that you can put a front plate on. Anyway, it goes back to something that you've always said though, which is like, don't make yourself a target.
Yeah, I know.
Like, what?
I used to drive like an 86 Chev Caprice and nobody ever saw me. We called it the stealth car because no police officer would ever see you driving it. It was great.
Yep, I've always driven basically like blue or silver sedans. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing that interesting.
Don't stand out.
No, don't stand out. Don't make myself a target. It says me, the girl who didn't put her license plate sticker on her car for however long she could get away with it.
That was a long time. That was a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, so I did make myself a target.
And you have more than one car.
So I did make myself a target historically, but it was for my personal entertainment.
Value.
Yeah.
You wanted the police to pull you over so you could test some of your theories.
I'll blow into yours if you blow into mine.
Okay. One of your jokes, one of your many jokes that I've heard many times before. More entertaining is the other ridiculous driver of the week.
So the other ridiculous driver of the week is a woman in Halifax who has been charged as a result of stealing a fire and emergency truck. So firefighters were responding to a fire alarm, and while they were there, this 28-year-old woman, for no apparent reason, gets into the fire truck and drives away.
I'm sure she had a reason.
I don't know. Anyway,
Drives away in a fire truck.
didn't damage it.
Yeah, that's the shocking thing to me because it's like theft of fire truck and managed to apparently drive it in such a way that she didn't damage it. I doubt she's driven many fire trucks before.
I mean, I would imagine
First
that
time fire truck driver.
her impairment was probably a cause.
Well, you're supposed to take a taxi. You're not supposed to take a fire truck.
Yeah. Um, yeah, she also got charged with assault of a peace officer, possession of property obtained by crime over 5,000, theft over 5,000, refusing to comply with a demand, impaired operation, mischief, which I don't understand, and then mischief endangering life, which I do understand.
Yeah, be interesting.
But anyway, no damage to the fire truck, which is quite impressive.
Also, good luck with that impaired.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I feel like
He's impaired.
stealing the fire truck is pretty compelling evidence in and of itself.
She might have had a very good reason.
Maybe there was another fire.
That's true. That's true. There might have been another fire that she was very concerned about.
I'm already defending this lady. It's great. Okay. All right.
Thanks.
That's
For bearing.
podcast.
Thanks for bearing with me here.
Yep. And if you have a driving law related issue or you stole a fire truck, you can give us a call at 604-685-8889 or find us online at vancouvercriminallaw.com and tune in next week for another exciting episode of Driving Law.